Assistant Secretary General of the UNDP.
Well, thank you very much, Sharon. It's indeed a great pleasure and an honor to be here at this conference in Indonesia and to have the chance to participate in this conversation with all of you. And the topic couldn't be more topical and important. Indonesia is really one epicenter in the in kind of the global drama that is unfolding every day now around the world in terms of the path to choose. We're at the crossroads. We can choose to continue down sort of along the same trajectory of resource-intensive and fundamentally destructive ways to earn a living and grow economies, or we can decide to take a different path, which is the sustainable and green development and growth path. And it goes without saying that that will not succeed unless there is a partnership at so many different levels between governments and the private sector and civil society. And I'll actually start in Egypt, of all places. Because if you think about it, what happened there? After several decades of basically fundamentally status quo, nothing really changed, all of a sudden something happened. And it was an enormous mobilization of civil society, of people who decided that something had to change fundamentally in their country in order to put it on a better track. Interestingly, one of the really key strategic leaders of that whole movement was a Google executive. And it's, I think, an illustration of why we are here. The fact that in order for fundamental change to happen, the private sector cannot simply sit back and wait for governments to put better regulations in place. Civil society can't wait for government to do all the right things. And government cannot just sit and blame the private sector for doing all the wrong things. Somehow there has to be a stepping up to the responsibility in all major segments of society. And that is also very, very true for what we're facing globally and at the national level when it comes to finding that better path towards a green, sustainable, and secure and inclusive future for all. Now, governments, of course, have a fundamentally important role to play because only governments can directly set the rules of the game. They can do that at the global level by agreeing to rules of the game at the global level. That's what the UNFCCC process, for instance, is all about. The UN, the United Nations. And of course, at the national level, only governments can set the laws, the regulations, and the policies that can lead to change. Now, governments do not always do that. There's enormous amounts of reasons for why governments aren't always able to change course fundamentally in an economic trajectory. A lot of vested interests everywhere, resistance to change in bureaucracies and so on. And certainly, very often, we see this all over the world, real change requires culture change in government institutions at national and subnational levels. And by the way, the subnational level is as important as the national in many ways. And it's fascinating that here in Indonesia, there is a growing recognition of the importance of bringing that kind of change process into the way government operates at all levels. And this is not a uniquely Indonesian need, it's a need that we see everywhere. We see it in rich countries, we see it in developing countries all over the world. The civil society, I want to mention that too, because here in Indonesia, you have this, it's so unique that I really want to bring it up. You have these religious, these Islamic social movements, organizations, really committed to improving the lives of people throughout the country. And they have, if I understand correctly, 2 of them have more than 100 million members. And in this country, these organizations have decided that they are going to push strongly for a different trajectory also when it comes to environment and climate change and reducing deforestation. That's an enormous asset base that Indonesia has that you don't find in the same way in most other countries. And it's very, very interesting and exciting to see that. And then finally, and last but not least, of course, again, back to the private sector. That's where the innovation is going to come from when it comes to the technologies and solutions that can help us move the change process forward. The palm oil sector in this country should have an enormously important role to play in shifting the whole trajectory when it comes to forests and deforestation or towards a more sustainable path. And we in UNDP, we are quite convinced that that could happen. As long as the government is clear that it intends to set different rules of the game, to fundamentally alter the incentives, which only governments can. RED Plus offers a fantastic opportunity for that. And as we've seen in Brazil, once there is a clear signal that the rules of the game are about to change, behavior changes immediately. And here, the private sector can and should be part of this, and rather than sort of waiting for change to happen, to do as Mr. Ghonim did in Egypt, stand up and show leadership and make it happen. Ultimately, that's what brings about the really most difficult and the most worthwhile changes that we need in society today. Thank you.
Olaf, thank you very much for those remarks. Let me turn to our Gita is here. Great. Let me, as he gets mic'd up, welcome Gita to our panel. I'll give him a little breather to collect his thoughts, but welcome to the panel. Let me now turn to Pak Teras Nanang, Governor of Kalimantan Tengah. Look forward to hearing your remarks, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to introduce about the Kalimantan Tengah. I think it's easy for me to say Kalimantan Tengah, not Central Kalimantan. Right? Kalimantan Tengah is the third largest province in Indonesia, with total area about 15.36 million hectares, or about 1.5 of Java Island. The province, Kalimantan Tengah, mostly covered by forests, and also Kalteng, Kalimantan Tengah, has about 750 kilometers coastal lines. And we really give a full support, and we really appreciate for our president, especially about for his vision for our economy to be powered by strong regional growth, and his commitment to reduce greenhouse gases emission, the 726 commitment. And 726 commitment is a simple and clear message to our people that needs to be realized through strong commitment and also collaboration by whole stakeholders. In my capacity as the recently elected governor of Kalimantan Tengah, I really have many dreams for Kalteng, for Indonesia, and also for the world. Sustainable economic growth is at the core of this mission. We want to create an attractive environment for business,